largest outbreak of tornadoes on record up until, I guess, 2011. But we had tornadoes in Canada, the eastern and the southern United States, and I was allowed to volunteer for several days and work with my ham radio gear. And that was really a life-changing experience. So working at that little radio station in the mid-70s when the weather was so extreme was just incredible, experience for me. And then I started doing this. I learned that you could do weather professionally, and I changed majors. My first major, again, was electrical engineering, and I would finish in meteorology at Mississippi State University. And I started working in this market. I'm in Birmingham, Alabama. This is a top 50 market in 1979. I mean, that's pretty embarrassing. I am old as dirt, but I feel good. I'm just getting started. And I was 23 years old and had very little experience, but I was given the opportunity of a lifetime. And yes, in 1979, we used magnetic stickers on the map. Notice behind me, those that warm front and the little sun, that's a stick-on thing. And that's an upgrade because really when I started, we had to draw with a magic marker. So I worked in Birmingham here for 5 years, and then I was transferred to Dallas, Texas. And this is me in Dallas in 1984. And I was still very young. I was in my 20s, and I didn't really request to go there. I just was told I'm going. And Dallas is a top 10 market, one of the largest television markets in the United States. And again, that was great experience. I'm really glad I had the opportunity to do that. I think a lot of people wonder what's it like working in a big market. And while I was there, I filled in on the CBS Morning News and did so many national things. And I'll never have to worry what it's like. And I've never really had any interest in being some TV guy or working in some big market, but it happened. And I think more importantly, I had a chance to meet a lot of really good people that are scientists in the weather enterprise in Dallas-Fort Worth during the stretch there. But my wife and I just decided we wanted to come home. We are from Alabama. Listen, I was born here. I will die here. I will be buried here. So the opportunity came up to come back, and this is 1990. I worked for WBRC Channel 6. And then in 1996, I switched channels to the place where I'm working now. So I've been here 26 years. This station was built in 1996. And the opportunity was given to me to go on the air anytime I wanted to. I had no restrictions, which means I could do long-form tornado coverage. And that's what convinced me to make the change. The other channel I worked for was a legacy station, huge audience numbers. But at this place, we've charted some new territory, I think, in weather coverage. And I'm still here today, all these years later, and I still cannot wait to come to work every day. I see so many people that just hate their job. And goodness gracious, I love what I do. I've probably been here a little too long when you start to see this kind of stuff going on here. I mean, this guy is going to realize that I am stuck on his body for the rest of his life. And I will say that too much alcohol is probably a bad thing. But most people know me for this. I think I was born to be standing in front of a green wall when there are tornadoes flying around here. And this is a very aggressive tornado market. Again, after the change in 1996, of course, all the other stations kind of jumped in, and we were really doing this long-form aggressive tornado coverage before most other markets. I think the two most aggressive markets in the United States are Oklahoma City and in Birmingham. And again, this is what people know me for, and I've done a lot of severe weather events over the years. I will say this was a bad day. This particular screen grab, this was for March 25th of last year. And there was an EF3 tornado. And we get those on a regular basis here. This is not that unusual. The odd thing about this situation was the fact that that EF3 was approaching my home. And that creates a whole new dynamic when you're on the air. And I texted my wife, and we have a tornado shelter, and we have a safe place rated for an EF5, and she was there. And I knew that she would be fine, but you don't know if you're going to have a house. This is that tornado. And again, we're down here in the Deep South. Our tornadoes are rain wrapped. We don't have the beautiful, visible tornadoes that you see in Kansas and Oklahoma. Here in the southern United States, our tornadoes are looking like that, rain wrap. But about 10 minutes after this video was taken, that particular tornado hit our house. This was an EF3. And by the grace of God, the roof stayed on the house. So we were able to stay in the house while they worked on the house and fixed the damage. And the damage was horrible, just horrible. And until your home is hit by a tornado, it might not mean a lot to you, but that was a pretty rough situation. Here's the same tornado. It's a rain-wrapped EF3 right below the TV station where I work. That's US Highway 31 south of Birmingham. And thank goodness that guy stops, but it's going to cross the highway and then go down Highway 119 near a couple of schools. But I got all this publicity, and I have never been interested in publicity when I do this. I just, again, my background is being an introvert. And, but all these, news organizations publicize, hey, weatherman finds out his home was hit by a tornado live on the air. But anyway, this is a few points I want to make tonight. Again, I don't like to talk long because I'm a boring speaker. And if you've ever watched Weather Brains, you know that I'm not an organized speaker, but this is something that everybody needs to understand. Everything that's ever happened to you, everything, good and bad, it's going to bring you to just 1 or 2 days in your career when all of it is needed. And those days will define who you are. For everybody on this call, you're going to have 1 or 2 days that define you. Your defining days. And the question I ask now is, are you ready for it? And I don't know if everybody is. And the truth is, you don't even know when that day is going to be. But if you're in the weather business, it's typically going to be related to some high impact weather event, whether it's a tornado outbreak, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's a blizzard or some type of big snow event, whether it's a flood. You just don't know. And you might have an idea it's going to be a bad day, but all of the things that have happened to you, good and bad, will get you ready for that. And for me, at my age, I've had a lot of things happen to me, both good and bad. And I think for me, one of my defining days was what happened on April 27th, 2011. And this was a generational tornado outbreak, much like the 1974 event. This is a look at the tornadoes during the afternoon. I'm sorry, this is the morning round of storms. This is the morning event. We had a QLCS event that morning, quasi-linear convective system. We used to call them squall lines. A little comma head up there north of Birmingham. And within that QLCS, we had multiple tornadoes. We had a number of straight line wind damage events, and 5 people were killed in the morning. So the morning event here, that was very high impact, and that's how the day started. And quite frankly, we didn't think it was going to be that bad, but it certainly was. And then, of course, later in the day, it was just absolutely brutal. This is what it looked like during the afternoon. And again, you're just pretty much looking, again, at graphic violence. I don't, some people love to watch these loops, and I don't. I've seen it enough. I lived it. I experienced it, and I know the story behind every blob of color on that radar map. I know who died. I know what happened. These are human lives that are being affected by these storms, and that's what we dealt with that afternoon and that evening. We had 62 tornadoes in one day in my state, for those that don't know the story of that day. And again, this is April 27, 2011. Probably this was the most publicized tornado of all of them. This is one that originated in eastern Mississippi, a supercell long track type tornado situation. Dropped a horrible tornado in the towns of Tuscaloosa and Birmingham, 2 population centers in the state. The tornado lifted and dissipated. Another one got down east of Birmingham, and that stayed down into Georgia. And the supercell finally lifted in the mountains of North Carolina. But understand, there were 61 other stories that a lot of people never talked about. And I'm not faulting the journalists, because you don't have the manpower to cover this. And again, this is a look at the tornado tracks, all 62 on that day. And it was just horrific. Again, this is the Tuscaloosa Birmingham tornado. This is taken from John Brown and White Wilhelm when it was coming through Tuscaloosa. And let me just say this. We have reason to believe that 3 people were killed trying to shoot video of this thing. We live in a cowboy society now where everybody wants to be a storm chaser and they want to shoot video on their phone and get some Google AdSense money or TikTok money. And the question I pose for these amateurs that have had no experience and no training, is your life worth getting that crappy TikTok money? We have great concern. And there's some marvelous storm chasers that are so good and so qualified, and they practice safety first, and they're responsible, and they're great. But the ones that are renegades that run out here and do this stuff, it's horrifying. But this is from John Brown and Mike Wilhelm. Mike tragically passed away a few years ago. I miss him a lot. John still works with us here at the TV station. And of course, they're safe. It's moving away from them. But this is a large wedge EF4, upper end EF4, wind velocity about 190 miles an hour. And that's the kind of day that this was. The numbers, we had 62 tornadoes on that day. And the second number there, you see that the death toll, 252. That is absolutely inexcusable for anybody. And the weather enterprise, the public, anybody on this call, we've got to do better. And we had the 2 rounds of storms, the morning round, the afternoon round. The warnings were just excellent for all the tornadoes, and the physical science was darn good. And I think one of the big things we learned that day is the fact that maybe what we do is not enough. 252 people died on my watch, and that's ridiculous. These were precious people that died. And I think for everybody, maybe there comes a time in their life where they just realize they're not as good as they think they are. You know, you've been doing this a long time. You think you got this down. You're good. Well, maybe we're just not as good as we think we are. Humility is missing in this science. There's a lot we don't know, and there's a lot of things we can't do. And as you get older, you learn that. But I think what we learned that day is what we do is not enough. My background is physical science, and that's it. Physical science. I don't know anything about human behavior. I don't know anything about, getting people to react. And that's what we're trying to do. So we've integrated social science into physical science. And that's made us so much better. These brilliant social scientists have helped us so much after that day. And I didn't talk about this day for 6 months. I just didn't want to. I basically had nothing to say. I had to go through the grieving process. But again, so many people died. And I could show you guys faces all day of people that died. I know these stories. I know many of their surviving family members. It affected all age groups. It affected just so many different demographics. It affected people in the city. It affected people that live away from cities out in the country. This is Carrie Lowe. She was a nurse. She left behind a newborn and her husband. And I always think about her last social media message. And apparently she paid good attention to the weather, but we had power problems, and she lost her life that day. This is where she died. This is 12th Street in a community called Pleasant Grove, which is a suburb of Birmingham. And again, this was in EF4. And some of the family members survived, and Carrie did not. This is Carrie's newborn today with her sister-in-law. This is Ari Hallmark. She lost her parents, Shane and Jennifer. The parents died. 2 of her grandparents died. A cousin died. 5 caskets in one family. By the way, this is Ari today. She's a high school senior. She's doing fine. Ashley Harrison, she was 2 weeks away from graduating. And again, I could tell these stories all night, and I don't want to do that, but Ashley was an only child like me. I have no siblings, from Dallas, Texas, where I used to work way back in the 80s. And she had a pulse when she got to the hospital. She was lofted. And when most people are lofted, they are impaled. And it's horrific, the injuries. But she had a pulse, and they tried to clean her up. And she died before they got her into surgery. And the triage nurse at DCH Regional Medical Center, we've talked in private, and she wanted to reach out to Ashley's parents just to let them know how hard she fought on that table to live. And this is Ashley's parents later in the year when graduation was held. This is Dave and Darlene Harrison. And let me just chase a rabbit here. If you can't see the pain in her eyes, you're not human. The pain that she feels, it's visceral. I can feel it. And if you cannot feel that pain, then you don't need to be doing this, because you have to understand the people that we serve. You have to be able to walk in their shoes. You have to have empathy. And so many people in the weather business have gotten away from that. They're just doing it for themselves. And we have to remember that we've got to mitigate this type of pain, this type of loss of life. Tornadoes affect real people at a real place at a real time. And I will tell you that Darlene hurts just as much today as she did 11 years ago. We talk almost every year or communicate every year, and we've got to do better. And let me just say a couple of things real quick about what we learned here. The number, and again, we went to the social scientists to say, hey, guys, and I did this. I want to know why everybody died. 252 people. Why did they die? Because the warnings were good. In some cases, you had a lead time of 45 minutes. And with all this lead time, and listen, the warnings were easy. A third grader could issue these tornado warnings. These were incredible tornado signatures. You could see many of these tornadoes, which is odd for Alabama. It wasn't that hard warning for these tornadoes. It wasn't. The hard part here is QLCS tornadoes that last for 5 minutes in the middle of the night. That's hard. But with 45 minutes lead time, what in the world happened? And I got to share with you real quickly the reason that people died. And there's two big reasons. And number one, it's what drives me crazy, the siren mentality. People are dying thinking they're going to hear some World War II air raid siren, which is just insane. These things are, say, World War I, really. And you'll never hear these things in a building during a raging storm, a house, a business, a school, a church. You won't. And yet people still rely on these things. It's absolute insanity. And it really dawned on us next year when this 16-year-old kid was killed, Christina Heichelbeck. And I don't need to see her picture here. I can close my eyes. I can see her face. This was a pre-dawn tornado northeast of Birmingham in a suburb called Clay. Happened about 4 a.m. on the 23rd of January, 2012. This was the next year, not 2011, but the next year. And you can see there the grieving father said the family didn't hear the warning siren. I mean, come on. Goodness gracious. I mean, I was so mad when this happened. I wanted to climb these poles and take those things down and burn them. That way you know that you won't hear them. But we're starting to get traction here in the United States. We have weather radio, and that's the baseline. Cell service can go out, and we don't have enough homes with weather radios in them. But the number two reason people died is this, the lack of helmet use. And shame on me. I knew this going into 2011. I knew it, and I didn't say it on the air enough. And for those of you that want to do broadcast meteorology, do what I do. Understand that sometimes your words or your lack of words can kill people. It's serious business, and you have to be cognizant of that. And I was not, and I didn't encourage people to use helmets enough on that day. The truth is probably 50 people, at least 50 of the 252 would be alive today if they had a cheap bicycle helmet on. And I just didn't remind them of that. And again, we've got to do better. But after all that, I think we pooled our resources, and we seem to be doing a little better job, I think, at this point. And again, I'm just not saying this is not just me with an opinion. This is some peer-reviewed medical research from some of the major institutions here. But anyway, real quick, let me share a few random things here, and I'll wrap up my segment, because we have, for those that don't know, we have a tropical storm that's moving into my state, which means I've got to get back to working here in just a second. But let me just say this. If you want to work, say, in this environment, if you want to work in the private sector, and even if you want to work at NOAA or the Environment Canada, whatever government operation you want to work for, I think these three characteristics are universal. And this is what I look for. In fact, I've got a job opening right now. You want to work here? Send an application, file it. I've had an opening for a while, and we can't find anybody. And we're fully cognizant that what we're doing, it's on its last legs. These Ron Burgundy newscasts, these will not be around much longer. And it will be reinvented. We fully understand that. But anyway, the three things I'm looking for. Number one, I'm looking for somebody that's willing to work really, really hard. What we do today, we used to worry about being on TV 2 times an evening when I was a kid. Now, most people, of course, get weather on their phone, and these phones never turn off. And to do this effectively, you have to be available for the people you serve at any hour of the day or night. I'm sleeping about 3 hours a night, which is not really healthy, but to do it right, you have to do that. So I'm looking for somebody that really wants to work hard and somebody that loves working hard and that loves this job. Like I've told you guys, I've never worked a day in my life. I can't wait to go to work every day, despite the fact that I'm not sleeping. We deal with trolls and haters and know-it-alls and all this other stuff on the social platforms. I can't wait to go to work every day. So I'm looking for somebody that's got a passion for this and they're willing to work hard. The second thing is integrity, and that's hard to talk about. We'll talk about that another day, but I can't have anybody with a big integrity failure working for us that makes mistakes over and over and over. Let me just say this. If you're applying for a job with me, get with the first thing I do. What do you think it is? I go straight to your social media feeds. And if there's something, and again, I am a big freedom of speech person. I will fight for your right to say whatever you want to say. But if it's full of political hate, if it's full of just nonsense, just vulgar profanity, whatever, that's great, but you can't work for me. One of the things I do, I take our interns in the summer to a Walmart in a working class part of the city to see if they can engage with people in the Walmart, because that represents the people that we serve. And they don't look like them. They don't think like them. They don't vote like them. They don't have the same worldview. They don't have the same education. They don't have the same income. But if you can't communicate with those people, you will not be successful on television. You will not. You have to be able to serve everybody of different political parties, of different demographics, different ethnicities. You have to be able to do that. And I love taking kids into that Walmart. I think the one that did better than anybody else was a student from Valparaiso University, Ginger Zeitgeist. She was here in the summer of 2000, and she did great. And we didn't like her last name. It sounded like something that should be surgically removed, Ginger Zeitgeist. We started calling her Ginger Z, and that name stuck. And she's done very well. She's the chief meteorologist for ABC News in New York. She's on Good Morning America every morning, and she's incredible. But anyway, integrity is a big deal. And finally, this is the big one, and I'll stop, is having a servant's heart. You have to be able to put the needs of the people you serve beyond your own needs. And I fought that for years. I was a jerk. I was the most selfish person on the planet. And if you're selfish, you won't do well in this position. People can read you like a book. And if you're a jerk, if you're in it just to be a, if it's all about you, they'll know that, and they won't use your products and services. I had a job. We had one job applicant. I looked at their Instagram feed. 99 of the last 100 posts this person had, they were selfies. And there's nothing wrong with selfies. That's fine. We all do them. But 99 out of 100, you're telling people it's all about you. So you have to have a servant's heart and put yourself in the position of those people that we serve. We're so guilty in the weather enterprise of doing things that's right for us. And that doesn't matter. We have to do the things that are right for the people that we serve. And that's why I like to hang out in places where our mass audience would be, like a Walmart, a Target, a Dollar General, these type stores here. And I like to talk with people, and I like to listen to them. And I'm in a school every day. I mean, I speak in schools every single day. You want to see what I did today? This is some first graders at a school in Moundville, Alabama. You don't know where that is, and you don't care. But you do this every day for 44 years, you get a very unique knowledge of the people and the culture and the geography of the people that you serve. And you have to understand all of those things, the people, the culture, and the geography, and of course, the microclimates. And doing school programs every day, that's a big part of what I do. And I hear some television meteorologists, they'll brag, oh, I did one school last month. Well, I do 2 a day. And I'm some old guy. And if I can do that, you can do better. And it gets the kids excited about science. And it's a win-win for everybody. But again, we are all learning as we go. And even as times change and we get away from the Ron Burgundy newscasts, we still have to be connected with people. And let me just say one more thing. I really love your generation. You're smarter than mine. You're going to work harder than mine, and you're going to reinvent this wheel as to where it's going to be something better. And there's a lot of products and services out there, some good, some bad, across the platforms that are pretty fascinating as we start to reinvent the model. Some of the YouTubers are fascinating to watch their business model and how they do things. They're not all good. They're not all bad. And the same thing with those that are on TikTok and all these other platforms. And again, as people shift away from traditional television onto these platforms, something good will come out of that. I don't exactly know what that is, but I have to live in those worlds. And that is one of the negatives, I think, of, the where we are now. It's dealing with the hate and the anger and the rage and the vitriol. I get called names every day just for posting a sunset picture. It's brutal. But again, I really work hard to post reliable content that people can use. So anyway, guys, I would love to stick around, but I've got a tropical storm by the name of Nicole coming up in here. So I have got to scoot.